Okay, I think everybody can hear and we see people. Okay, well, my name's Kathy Siskowski. I am one of the coordinators of this group. I'm thinking, yeah, we're maybe into 3 years of doing this. It feels informal. It's all been dependent on the wonderful help we've gotten from the library, both when we met in person and now, and Mary Pugh especially. So hooray. But so here we are today. Um, and before we get started with Gloria's presentation, which I'm really excited about, um, I'm just going to mention a couple things. I think this is really important. And I somehow discovered that today, from 3:30 to 5:30, the Attorney General is actually holding a Zoom meeting because many of you have heard, maybe not, that they're planning to take the archives building from Seattle and sell it. The federal government wants to take all the records from that building, send them thousands of miles away, different region and everything, and sell the building. And, you know, a number of Native American records, Alaska records, all that are in that building. It houses things from especially the Northwest and Native Americans. So today from 3:30 to 5:30, there's going to be a Zoom meeting where the Attorney General is trying to halt that sale. And he wants comments and to explain to people what's happening, which I'm just grateful for. So we can either put it on, if it's okay with Vicky, send the link to people after this meeting. It's short notice, but I think it's kind of important if you have an interest in that.
Could you put it on chat, Kathy?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I will do that before the end of the meeting. What I wrote down, yeah, okay. So then the other thing I got interested in is there's this organization called Crosscut. They do a lot of news stories of Washington. And they're going to be offering a presentation called Finding Your Roots, Washington, Old Growth to New Beginnings. And that's coming up on January 21st. I'll also share information about that. There's a historian on there that I'm quite fond of. What's his name? Knut Berger, who is going to be part of the panel. And the other thing I want to tell you guys is I've actually, and I'm not very good about getting information out, but it turns out that so many genealogical groups, just like ours, you know, are meeting by Zoom, and that you can go to those meetings. So I found sort of a roundabout invitation to the Grays Harbor Genealogy Society meeting. And they were talking about the 1890 census and how the building burned down that held the census. It was very informational. And I thought, you know, you could go, we can generally go to any state we want that's going to be having one of these meetings and go to the meeting. So if you have a state or a county in particular that might have a genealogical society, they're probably doing Zoom meetings. So it might be worth doing a little research, because I was so happy that somebody had, you know, sent me that link. And I've gone to a few other ones. So I've realized this is a thing that's going on. And the other thing, I'm just going to say a little thing for inspiration. This is a family history legend. A great grandfather helped build the staircase, supposedly, of Mad King Ludwig's castle. So I went to Europe 6 years ago, spent about 2 months ahead of time trying to write German people, powers that be, to see if they had any records of him working on this castle. And it was very complicated, it was back and forth, German, English, blah, blah, blah. One person would send me another, would send me another. And finally, it looked good, but I wasn't going to be able to go visit any archives. Nobody had anything for sure. But this is my inspiration. So I've sort of given that up and thought that had to go to a different generation. And it just turned out the other day on YouTube, there's a brand new documentary about that castle, and the people that I'd written to were speakers in it. But the cool part is that those spiral staircases that I'd been looking so hard to find, and I couldn't find them. I actually went to the castle, couldn't find them. In the documentary, there they were.
Wow.
So I just thought that's another example of keeping your eyes open for these questions that you have. You think you're never going to know. And I'd look at those men talking and I think, oh, that's the guy I wrote to. And anyway, just seeing all these back staircases that were exactly what I wanted to see, but they weren't on the public tour. So anyway, there's a little inspiration of, artificial intelligence, I guess, helping out. So I'm sorry, Gloria, before we get going, it's always fun to go around and have people say their names and where they're at right at this moment. So
Yes.
I'm Kathy Siskowski from Orcas, and Vicky's going to carry on here.
I know. I was going to ask everybody to say maybe a couple of surnames that they're doing research on, just so I might just ask you to even type them into the chat, because you never know what connection we might even have in this group. So, Kathy, I'm calling on you first to do that.
Okay. MUHL, Mool, I just learned, from the Midwest, and Reichert, REICHERT.
RET. And where are they from?
They ended up being loggers again, coming out from the Midwest. All these people are German. I'm like, you got it, straight German everywhere.
I love it. Linda Dovefield, you already got everything all posted.
That's great.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
I typed yours up, Kathy, so you don't have to. I'm Vicki Lineback, and I want to welcome everybody here. I know we've got some new people, so if there's anything that we can do to help you, this is a great group for resources of that. We also have a Facebook page called Orcas Island Genealogy Club, so I'll welcome you to join that, and please post things there. So the next person I'm going to call on is Ann Ramsey. And you're on mute, Ann.
Okay. Okay, who I'm researching? I'm researching Rexroad, which has different spellings, but West Virginia to Kansas. I'm doing the one I'm trying to work on in Germany is Luttgen, Luttgen, and in German it has the umlaut U. And then Schweider from Switzerland, Arbogast, or Armancast, or it's spelled many different ways. It's the same family. They're in West Virginia also. I don't know. Quite a few. West Virginia, I think, is where I'm sort of working on the families that came through West Virginia right now.
That's really a good thing to tag when you type that in for the chat too.
Okay.
Hey, Jan, how are you doing? You're on mute. Can you unmute yourself? It's that little button that says mute. Mine is on the bottom left.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. I'm not doing much. I'm terrible here. During COVID, I should have been doing all kinds of things that I'm not. But I have Parrot, Perret, and Blackburn, and Marshall.
Did you say Harris or Parrot?
Parrot, P as in Paul, E.
Great.
Now, the parrots are from Switzerland, as the French speaking, and the Blackburn, the Marshalls were Scotland, I guess.
Okay. Thanks. And good morning, Dolly. You're on mute.
Hi there. The people that I am researching, my mother's last name is Martinolich, and she was born on Vashon Island, and my grandparents came from what they used to call the old country, northeast Italy, around there. And then on my father's side, Wells, spelled W-E-L-L-S, and he's United Kingdom. And evidently his family goes back to actually coming over at the very beginning of our republic. So those are the two that I'm doing.
Cool. Type them into the chat. That would be great.
I don't know how to do that.
Oh, well, do you see the chat button at the bottom of your screen?
Let's see. My stuff is all at the top. Let's see. It says more chat. Oh, yes. So I press chat.
Yeah. And it's to
And then
everybody.
I go ahead and, oh, okay, great. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Got it.
I'm going to skip over to Mary from Mary Pugh. Good morning. You're mute.
Good morning. Hi. Hi, everybody. So for myself, of course, I'm here for the library hosting all of you guys and enjoy seeing everybody, meeting everybody. Myself, we've been researching my husband's, Perry Pugh's family, and we're in 1666 in North Carolina and Virginia for that. And my family is the Rutherfords from Normandy, so doing some of that, kind of unusual there where Rutherford is spelt with an R-E, not an R-U. Haven't figured out that change, but it'll come. And my mother's side also is Kotlars from Poland. So that's what we've been doing.
Oh, cool. Good morning, Mary Ann. You got to unmute.
There we go.
Got it.
Good morning, everyone. I'm out in Deer Harbor, and I posted to chat some of the ones that I'm looking at right now. I'm stumbling over there not being any women's names in the censuses before 1850. It's so frustrating. And then looking at DNA matches on Ancestry and thinking, well, no doubt one of these people is the brother of one of these women who's just named Sarah. But it's tricky to figure out. And I love the idea of going to Ohio and finding that area and saying, I want to be in your genealogy meeting. That is great. So thank you.
You bet. Good morning, Leith.
Hi, everyone. I guess I put in the text Douglas from Kirkwood, Scotland. That's where my great-grandfather came from, and around the Horn to San Juan Island. And so I'm always looking in Scotland to find more information about the Douglases there. But can I ask one quick question? If it's possible on this thing that Kathy was talking about in Seattle, when you send the link for that, if Kathleen, if you could put 2 or 3 things that were bullets that we could write something or say something in support of keeping the stuff in Seattle and not selling that building, that would be helpful.
That's a great idea. I
I don't
see
know.
that she just posted that on there, so.
Yeah, I've got the link and all that. I think what I'll do right now, I'll just give you the link to the article as well. And
Okay,
that's clear. I have to think about
perfect, good.
anyway.
Okay.
Good morning, Ramona.
Hi there. I'm in Shoreline still, but I got my shot yesterday, my vaccine.
Yay.
So
Good for you.
I'm going to be free pretty soon. Oh, dear me. In the San Juan area, I'm really more interested in Gawley, Gawley, and more Lummi Island connections. And then family names Wilborn, and I think probably North Carolina and Virginia, that area in the early times, and Mershimer, Germans from 1752, I think, that came across. And I really, eventually I want to find out how I can find more about Mad Anthony Wayne during the Revolutionary War.
Oh, there you go.
Because this Mershimer grandfather was with him in Washington for 8 years. Wilborn. So thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Julia. Welcome.
Thank you. That's my first time joining the group. I've been researching my father's side of the family. My mother's side has done genealogy way beyond my skill level already, but so I've been trying to learn more about my father's side of the family, which is Turney, and was originally Détrenay, and got changed when they came to the US. So I've been slowly trying to learn more about that.
How interesting. Well, welcome. Good morning, Susan and Jim.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. A couple of things. I just made the discovery that if I click in the chat somewhere and hit Command All to select everything, or if I drag it all, when we're all done posting these names, we can copy and put them on a Word or whatever other kind of document you might use. So we'll have a record of them. I didn't realize you could select all of chat and do that. So I'm going to do that.
Oh, that is great. Would you mind doing that?
What do you mean? Oh, and just sending it
And
out.
sending it to me?
Very happy to. Somebody remind me before the meeting is over so I don't space it. So I wrote way at the top, we're researching Hull and Connell, our 2 names. Hull and Van Tiles are Pennsylvania, Ohio, Southern Ohio, and then on into the Midwest, upper Midwest from there. Connells are mostly in the New Jersey, New York, Long Island area, and Rinker, Van Tile, and Mailer. Rinker's Virginia and the South. And Van Tile and Maves are kind of all over the place. Also, Ramona, Jim noticed that he knows a Wellborn, different spelling, but could be a link in, where'd you say it was? In North Carolina. So there's something to talk about. And last thing I wanted to tell you all, this has nothing to do with genealogy, but I find it really valuable. This morning, Jim discovered a form that you can fill out at findyourphasewa.org. I'll print that and put it in where you can figure out where it will tell you if you qualify right now to get a vaccine, and if not, when you will. It's really valuable. And you get a little, if you qualify, you get a little form that you can make a screen copy of and just walk in and say, I qualify, give me my vaccine. So that's pretty cool too. So yeah, so there's that. Thanks. Good to see everybody.
That's all awesome. Thank you. Good morning, Linda. You were the first one to post your names.
Good morning. I'm sort of stalled on my mom's side, the German Russians, but this past year was able to find the birthplace of one of my great grandmothers, which I was very relieved about. But I'm stalled again on that. So I started more on my father's side, and he's got one branch that actually has been here since colonial times. Everybody else is really new. So they'll start in like the late 1800s. The other really nice thing that happened to us this year was it just happened a couple weeks ago. My husband and sons were inducted into the Sons of the American Revolution. It took quite a few years to get all the documentation done, so we're pretty happy about that.
Very impressive. That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good morning, Terry, and welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm on Shaw, and thanks for the invitation, Vicki, and I'm glad to be here. I'm just starting out with genealogy. I'm focusing on a great-grandfather from the Lewiston, Idaho area that served time in jail during Prohibition for moonshining. And that's where my interest came. So I'm interested in information on Prohibition in Idaho. So
That is so great. You know, I always say that my mom was always like, why aren't you researching my side? You're always researching your dad's. I go, well, that's because they were always in trouble. And so it's really well documented.
Yeah, I know. I want to know about the trouble. So his name was Howell. So the names would be Howell or Manning.
Great. Add it into the chat.
Okay, thanks.
Good morning, Carol. You're on mute. Can you unmute?
Yes.
There.
I think that's it.
Yep.
My 12-year-old today, he's 12, told me how to get my picture, and he figured out all the technical parts of this. So here I am with a picture and a voice. The two families that I'm researching are on my father's side, Strickland and Franklin, through the South and into Texas. I believe about the time of the statehood of Texas. So that's one of the things I'm interested in finding out about. But I'm new to Orcas Island, so good to see you all.
Good to see you too. Good morning, Sandy. You're on mute. Are you there?
Yeah, there I am.
There.
Yeah, I am researching far too many local names here to really spew some out, but I just want to learn from you. My job is different than genealogy, but I need to be able to research families to understand the significance of those associations to buildings in Friday Harbor, which is my gig, is buildings in Friday Harbor. So, and the one thing I will say is that one thing that I work for the town of Friday Harbor, for most of you don't know me, but we are starting a survey of what we call post-war architecture in Friday Harbor. So that includes post-war, mid-century and recent past, everything from 1940 to 1980. And what I'm discovering is it is really hard to get information on contemporary families without being intrusive. So it's really easy to step on toes when you're trying to figure out, well, who are the people who lived in these houses or who built these buildings. So that's kind of my challenge. And I have to say that one of the odd, I've been really kind of frustrated with it. So one of the odd things I subscribe to, and please don't hold this against me, has been this online source called Been Verified. And it's really, you know, most people use it if they want to find out if somebody has a criminal background record, which I don't care about. But it's a way for me to identify who are people who have lived in a site in the last 20 or 30 years, and maybe to reach a family member who's still alive. So it's weird. I find information all over the place. But anyway, I'm here to learn from all of you.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
Sandy, I'm going to interrupt for a minute. Sandy Straylu is your last name. And Sandy has agreed to be our presenter for next month. And I'm not quite sure what direction that's all going to go, but I think it'll, whatever, however you take us, we will happily go with you.
I feel under pressure because
I know.
How can I put together a presentation that will be relevant to all of you? Because what I do is a little bit different. So,
yeah.
And
we'll talk.
Anyway,
we'll talk.
It'll all be good and very interesting.
Yeah.
Good morning, Bob. You're on mute.
Oh, boy.
You're still on. Oh, there you go.
Gave me a text message there instead of using the little symbol. It's a work in progress.
I know.
Yeah, I found out that link you sent, if you don't click on Google Calendar, then it doesn't show the link for login for Zoom.
Weird. It's the same link every month. Mary can correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's correct. It's the same link for every month. So once you have it stored, you can use it.
Okay.
Yes. I see you posted your names, Bob. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning, Karen.
Good morning. So I am over in Olga, and I've been researching my father's family, which is Johnston and Strain, Strain, and they're both in Northern Ireland, where most of the records have been lost. So I have lots of relatives with the right names in the right place, but not the paperwork to connect them. So I don't know if they're cousins or, you know, which generation. So I've got them back to in the 1700s, but I can't connect them. So I've been working on that. And I heard that in Northern Ireland, they lost a lot of records in the fire in 1922. So they're now going out into the world and trying to collect records from other sources so they can rebuild that database. And it's supposed to be up next year in 2022. So that will help anybody who's looking for records, hopefully in Northern Ireland.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Tracy. If you hear me, you're on mute. Okay, Tracy, I'm going to come back to you. Good morning, Peter. You're on mute as well. Well, I'm going to skip over to Gloria. Thank you for doing this.
Sure, you're welcome.
We're very much looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you.
So I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay, well, I'm just going to tell you this is the first time I've done a Zoom presentation, so you have to bear with me and as I figure it all out. But good morning, everybody. My name is Gloria Eppig, and I've been a member of the Genealogy Club for a few years now. And in my prior life, I worked in technology for many years. And I've been really interested in some of the technological tools that are available to support genealogy research. So a couple of years ago, I found an article. I was actually on an American Airlines flight in the American Way magazine, and it was about the Civil War Sleuth product that was being developed. And at the time, I made a copy of that article for the club, but Kathy had asked me to do a presentation about that product. And as I started researching, there were so many other genealogical tools out there that use artificial intelligence to support to support them. So I thought it might be a good idea to talk about some of those tools and some really cool futuristic stuff that's coming that if you haven't seen it, it's pretty amazing. So I'll bring that along at the end. But before we get started, I really wanted to give you an idea, a little bit of background about what artificial intelligence is. And it sounds kind of scary and futuristic, but it's really part of our everyday lives today. The definition is that it's anything that is computer or computer robotic controlled that handles things that involve some sort of intelligence that might be generated from, human coding, basically computer programming. And it's frequently used to describe systems that allow the application to reason or come up with some sort of generalization, some sort of model based on past experiences. And it does drive some robotics and machine learning as well. So it's just a very general view of the definition. So if you are going to develop an AI application, you're going to need 3 things to make that happen. This is sort of the recipe for that. You're going to first need data. And data is sort of the raw material of IT. You can't do anything in IT without having some data. But you have to make that data useful to you. So how do you do that? Well, you have to create some sort of process where you figure out what data is relevant and what data is not relevant. And the way you do that is what's called data mining. And so you can imagine, like, if you have a prospector that's in a river or a stream in Alaska trying to find gold, and he takes a big pan and scoops up a bunch of water and dirt and stuff from the stream, and he's sifting away and he's trying to find that little gold nugget. Well, really, that's what data mining is about. It's looking for data that's relevant, has some sort of correlation with other data that can give you information that's valuable that you can then act upon. So that's ingredient number 1. Ingredient number 2 is you have to have systems that process all this data. So it's churning the numbers. So making sure that all the data that's fed in can get processed through some sort of parameters and then give you an output that you can actually use for something. And then the AI application uses that process data to make decisions. So it's a lot of if-then. So if this is the scenario, then this is what we're going to do. And that's generally how the AI works behind the scenes. So sounds kind of really technical and very complicated, but we see this using every day. I mean, if you use Waze to get your directions, so you can have find the quickest way to get down to Seattle, it's an application that tells you based on traffic or construction or whatever else, what's the quickest way to get there, then you're using AI. And if you look into that application a little bit more, you see that how that works is people are telling Waze information as they're on the road. So if they're seeing a big traffic backup, they'll communicate that through Waze, and then you'll be able to know that when you're traveling. Roomba, if you've got an iRobot vacuum cleaner, that's using AI to figure out what areas of your house are the dirtiest, where it needs to go over extra times, where the walls are, things like that. So it's keeping track of all that. If you use Alexa or Siri on your phone and ask them, what's the weather today? Or can you play my playlist? You're using AI. And then biometrics, this is a whole category of AI that is really being used a lot in genealogy and actually in, with current events happening today. Biometrics are important. This is things like facial recognition software. This is things like voice recognition, and also fingerprints, like you can read a fingerprint and give you access to your phone, for example. There's things like retinal scanning, where you put your eyes into a machine and it scans your retina to see if you're the actual person that should have access to a secure location or something like that. So that's definitely relevant with what's going on today with current events, because law enforcement's using biometrics a lot to figure out information about suspects in the Capitol attacks and things like that. So you'll see biometrics in a lot of your everyday AI use. Online shopping is another example where if you shop on Amazon or really anywhere, it'll sometimes give you recommendations for things that you might want to buy based on your past payment and purchase patterns. So it's another example. And then also streaming services. If you use Netflix, which most of us are doing because we're all in quarantine, you're seeing the Netflix application telling you things that you might like based on your current and past watching history. So all these things are examples of AI. And before I go any further on the specific tools, does anybody have any questions about that, the background? Okay, maybe I should give you one other example before we progress forward. When I was working in the banking world, when I worked in technology, primarily our first application that we developed with AI was for fraud detection and fraud prevention. So we would look at things like, for example, in the credit card world, where if you're a resident of Washington and you have a credit card, you live on Orcas Island, and then you generally use your card at the island market, or you go, sometimes you go off island to Burlington and do shopping or whatever, you have a general pattern of how you're using your card. If we see a transaction come through on your card that is in Hong Kong at a jewelry store, and there's no airline purchase to go to Hong Kong, no restaurants or hotels in that area, we'll say, hey, that's not normal, that's abnormal, there's something going on here. So it would be flagged. So that's an example of data mining and data management there. Your individual transaction, or the individual transaction that happens in Hong Kong, is coming into us to be verified. And when we see that, we say, wait a minute, based on this person's history and this person's spending patterns and the kind of experience we have with that particular customer, this doesn't seem right. So it kind of gives you a sense of, and then what we would do from there is we take that information and we make a decision. So is an investigator going to look at it? Is the customer going to get a call? Some companies will shut you down, but we didn't used to do that. We would just figure out what was going on and then make sure we didn't have a problem. So anyway, that's like kind of an example of how all of those pieces, the data, the raw data coming in, the data management and the processing of the data, and then also making a decision about what to do about that data, how that all kind of works together. So anyway, any other questions? Any questions that you have right now before I go into the tools? Okay.
Not yet, it all sounds good.
Okay, I just didn't want to get too technical and too far down the road if anybody wanted to understand that a little bit more. But okay, so the first tool I'm going to talk about, there's really three that I'm going to talk about today. It's Ancestry Hints, the Civil War Sleuth, and the newspaper Navigator. And then after I talk about those three tools, these are tools that are available on the market today. You can use them right now. You can go on to your computer and look them up, and you can start using them today. The last thing I'm going to talk about is a tool that's developed out of USC that is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And actually there is a tool that is coming out of that project that uses the same technology that will be commercially available very soon. It's actually in beta test, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Okay, so the first thing I was talking about is Ancestry Hints. And a lot of people have probably used this. If you use the Ancestry family tree capability, then you probably have seen this in your research and the work that you're doing on ancestry and genealogy research. What the Ancestry Hints does is it uses AI to data mine, as I've mentioned before, kind of find those gold nuggets within public records that might match a particular person in your tree. So it's looking at stuff that's already in that tree. So you might have the person's name, maybe you have their birth date or their death date, you might have their their place of birth or their place of death, or spouse or children or parents. any of that information can be used then to find these documents that might be relevant to that particular ancestor. And then the user interaction on this is very key, because it'll provide you with these hints. And let's say, for example, it shows you a marital record. The way it'll look on the screen is you'll have your tree, and then there'll be a little green leaf next to that particular person's name on the tree. And you can click on that little green leaf, and it will give you all the documents that it has found that could be potentially related to your ancestor. So you look through those documents and you decide whether or not they pass a reasonability check and whether they really do make sense for your particular ancestor. And then you would indicate that based on your own experience. You would say, yes, that's my ancestor. No, that's not my ancestor. Or maybe it might be not totally sure. And then based on that interaction you're having with the Ancestry Hints, it will continue to fine tune your data matches so that in the future, when you get these additional hints, they will be more specific to you. They'll be fine tuned over time. And the only issue I would see with, well, there's a couple issues. The issue I see with this is that you have to pay for the service if you actually want to see some of the documents. Some things you can see, but other things, Ancestry will require you to pay for the service. But if you have access at the library, you can use their subscription and not have to pay for it. So that's a way to get around that. The risk is if you say that this particular ancestor is indeed associated with this document, and it isn't, it could really cause you to go down the wrong path. It could start providing you information and start giving you connections, potential, parents or other types of data, documents, etc., that might not really pertain to your ancestor. And then you could be going down the totally wrong path. So just be careful when you're looking at the Ancestry Hints that you look to make sure that there's several pieces of data that actually match your ancestor before you accept that as part of that record. Because if you don't, like I said, you could end up with a lot of misinformation that might be in your tree. And if your tree is a public tree, then other people will use that information or misinformation as well and cause them to go down the wrong path as well. So that's the major risk I would see with that particular product. Anybody have any questions about Ancestry Hints? Okay. One other thing I was going to mention about Ancestry, they do have 27 billion records in their database. So every time I use Ancestry, it does get more and more robust. And even if you've been doing a lot of work in there, and then all of a sudden you go away for a couple weeks or something, you go back to it, you're getting new hints all the time based on the new data they're adding, the new data mining that they're doing, and also the new algorithms that they're adding into their services. So anyway, it's a good source of information, and it makes it so much quicker and easier for you to find documents and to also have hints about additional members of the family tree. But again, you got to be careful not to accept something that is a little bit iffy in terms of the match, because you don't want to be sent down the wrong path. Oops, I don't know what's going on with my computer here. I'm having trouble progressing to the next screen. So let me see for a second. Okay. So the next tool I'm going to talk about is Civil War Sleuth. And this is the tool that I brought to the club a few years ago. And it has gotten very, very much better than it was in 2019 when we first looked at this. I started looking into this because I have a few ancestors that were killed during the Civil War, and I wanted to see if I could find photos of them. I also had a bunch of old photos that belonged to my grandfather that were his family, and they were Civil War era photos from like 1869. So I thought, well, maybe if I put them in the database, it might help somebody else out, and maybe I could help me to identify who those people are. I only had one of those photos that was printed on paper. The rest were on tintype. They were, they're starting to really disintegrate and deteriorate. And I thought, well, maybe if I get them in this database, it will at least take that snapshot of point in time and try to keep that that photo intact. And also maybe if the software can identify the people in the photos, then I have, got some information to add to my family tree. So what this product does, before I talk about that specifically, I'll talk a little bit about the background of this. There was a Virginia Tech professor that had found at a museum in Pittsburgh, one of his ancestors. There was a display of his ancestors' information relative to the Civil War. And that's how this particular professor became interested in Civil War era photos. And there are a lot of people that, especially like in the East Coast, I lived on the East Coast for a long time. A lot of people I knew were Civil War reenactors and did a lot of research in Civil War, collectors of different artifacts, etc. They have many, many, many Civil War era photos out there, but we don't know who those people are in most cases. And this professor decided he wanted to build a repository of Civil War era photos, and his goal was to identify every single one of them using a product tool called facial recognition software that was developed at Virginia Tech with students and grad students. And this particular professor, he was a professor of computer science and also history. So he was trying to combine his two areas of expertise in creating this particular product. The way this works is it looks at 27 different types of facial attributes. And it's looking at things like the distance between your two pupils and your eyes, the distance between the bridge of your nose and the end of your eye. There's 27 different types of measurements and also relative measurements to the facial features that it's looking at. And that is going to be used to identify these particular photographs, because many of the photographs in the database are of the same person, but at different times. Like, so if they were promoted from one rank to another, they get another picture or another photograph taken. And this was the first time in US history that it was very systematically done. Almost every military member was photographed. And so there's a lot of these photographs around. Multiple copies were made of each photograph. So there are a lot of them out there. What this product is really doing is looking at figuring out amongst all those photos that might be in the repository, which ones are the same person, which ones potentially could be related based on facial features, and helping to identify soldiers in that way. You can also upload civilians into this database as well, and that software will help to analyze the facial features. This particular product is free to access. It's part of the National Archives database, and it, to me, is far more valuable if you're researching your family tree if you have no Civil War era photos. If you have an ancestor that served during the Civil War or was involved at all, because you can put in their name or just the last name you can even use, and it will show you all of the military photos or any photos that are in the database with that last name that have already been identified. And the people that are working on this project, they're very, very careful not to misidentify a photo. So they'll always err on the side of caution when it comes to identification. So if they don't think it's 100% sure that this particular photo is indeed this particular individual, they won't put the name in there. So it's a pretty good source if you're looking for an ancestor photo to go into, and super easy to use. And it also gives you lots of other information that has been put in there by the researchers that have been involved with this project, including what regiment they were in, what rank they were, if they did pass, if they did die during the Civil War, where they were buried, where they were killed, etc. So there's tons of information in here, and it's super easy to use, and it's pretty fascinating how they've developed this facial recognition software for this particular purpose. Now, my guess is that this is going to be used for other types of analysis as well. So that's kind of a future thing. Maybe we'll see this facial recognition software being used in other realms rather than just the Civil War research. Any questions about that particular product?
Yeah. This is Julia. I'd like to ask a question.
Okay.
I'm kind of excited about hearing this. My great grandmother had a boyfriend that had gone off to the Civil War from Wisconsin, and I have 2 tintype photos of him in his uniform, but I don't have his name. And it would be really neat to be able to find out if he has relatives still a lot, descendants that I could send those photos to.
Right. Yeah, and what you can do is you can create an account on Civil War Sleuth, and it's free. You can scan in your photos, and that's something that I've done too, is put all those photos out there. And then if you have the information, whatever information you can put in there, I mean, you can usually tell if it's a Confederate or a Union uniform, if it's a uniformed individual, and then any information you have, you can put in there, and then it will run through the software and try to find any links that might potentially be there. You might have another photo in there already that you can then access.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I believe at this point, there's more than 20,000 photographs in this database. I was trying to get more accurate information and up-to-date information, but there wasn't a lot more recent, but I did see that they have about 20,000 photographs in there. So even if you want to just do a quick search on a particular relative, it's really interesting to do, to see what you can come up with there. The other thing I would mention is it's been written up in several different publications, in Smithsonian Magazine and Time Magazine, as I mentioned, that American Web Magazine. So I think the word is getting out on this, and it's a relatively new database, but it started in middle of 2018. But because the word is getting out, I think people are starting to really contribute to it. Also, the people that are Civil War buffs are really into it. So they are helping to develop the research and helping to do a lot of the work. They call it crowdsourcing, which is basically getting a big group of people together to try to help do the research and to supplement the database and what information they've already got there. So that's a really good thing. I think that database is going to be fairly robust as the years progress and as things come along. Technology improves and more people know about this. Challenges on this software really are quite a few, because a lot of the photographs haven't been maintained properly, like we learned about last time in the meeting about how not to store your photos. I'm sure a lot of them are in attics and things like that. They do disintegrate, deteriorate. There are holes in them. The contrast gets blurred a little bit as the ink deteriorates. In tintype, they get darker, so it's harder to see the facial features because over time they will get darker and darker. What I've seen is most of the Civil War era gentlemen have lots of facial hair, and it's difficult to identify some of the facial features when there's a big heavy beard and mustache and things like that. So there are some challenges, but as I mentioned before, with the product, they're very, very careful to try to make sure that the information that's put in that database by the researchers that are working on this is 100% verified accurate. They're also doing another generation of work with the researchers in this project to have a second opinion. So if you think you have a match on 2 different individuals that the 27 attributes are matching pretty well, and you think you've got, yes, this is indeed the same person across different photographs, you can actually ask for a second opinion from one of the professionals, researchers, to see if that truly is the case. And then they will let you know that yes, indeed, this person does look like the same person based on these matches. So that's another thing that's coming or is starting to roll out with Civil War Sleuth. Okay. One other thing I should mention about that, it's not a perfect tool, but it's about 75 to 80% accurate in terms of the facial recognition software model. So anyway, that's pretty good, given all the challenges with these old photos. No, I think I missed something. Oh, wait. Where did my newspaper navigator slide? My newspaper navigator slide is missing somehow. I guess I must have deleted it by accident. So I'm sorry about that, but I'll talk to you a little bit about Newspaper Navigator, which is the third tool that is currently available. This is an AI application that searches historical newspapers and is built on top of the Chronicling America product that was developed by the Library of Congress. Newspaper Navigator was a tool that was built by a technologist innovator in residence when he was working at the Library of Congress. His name is Benjamin Lee, and he is a PhD student currently at University of Washington. He developed this process to basically go through all of the newspapers that have been in the database at the Library of Congress from 1789 to 1963, develop software with optical recognition that goes through all the photographs and all of the cartoons and all of the images that are in the newspapers during this time, and has indexed them. So you can go into this product, Newspaper Navigator, and look up a particular individual's name. You can look up, whoever the president was in 1799. We look up whatever you want to see about that particular a particular request you need to put in there. You can set up different attributes. You can set up a timeline. You can set up specific words you want to search for, and it will go through the database and identify any images that pertain to your particular interest. So it's really a very powerful tool because it goes through so many years of newspapers and really across the country. So this is another free tool because it is part of the Library of Congress. It was paid for by taxpayer development dollars, so it is available for anybody who wants to use it free of charge. The other cool thing about this particular product is that it was developed using taxpayer money, so the source code is available to anybody who wants to use it. So if somebody wants to develop another application that uses this as a baseline for other sorts of digital queries or searches, they can do that. They can just take whatever's there and build upon it, make it more robust, add additional enhancements, etc. So that's a pretty cool thing available for technologists because you have a base source code to work with, and you can then make it much more robust as technology improves and as your data improves and other things come into play there. So that's really a very interesting thing. How they did this, and to talk a little bit more about how they did this, they had volunteers go through and look at all the newspapers that were related to the time frame of World War I. And they manually indexed all of the photographs and cartoons, political cartoons, etc. And all of those types of things manually, just going through, with a lot of people. And that's basically the test data for this application. So they use the intelligence of people, and they tried to replicate the intelligence of people with the computer technology. And that's how they verified whether or not they had good results based on their tool. So that was pretty robust testing for this particular product. I was going to give you some statistics about this one. So once they developed this tool, they had to run all of those newspaper images through through the computer processing to identify all those indexes and create all those indexes. That took 19 days around the clock to crunch all that data to find those correlations and to get all that information into their database. So that's a pretty extensive computer processing job. I mean, to do 19 straight days to get all that information loaded into the database. And
Gloria, may I ask a question?
sure, absolutely.
This is Susan Hull. Do you have enough experience yet with this Library of Congress newspaper database to compare it to newspapers.com?
I don't, and I haven't. I've done a few queries on it, and I have used newspapers.com through Ancestry. I think newspapers.com is probably better because I think it's got better user interfaces in terms of but you do have to pay for the Ancestry link to the newspaper database, and the other one is not. Is a free service. So I don't know. I think the Ancestry link is way better right now, but it is a product that is pretty much in its infancy. I think it was just developed last year. So I think this could get better over time as some additional work is done on it.
That makes sense. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And that particular product, the Newspaper Navigator, has 1.56 million images in the database. So that gives you a sense, it's pretty large database that you could, it's another tool. It's another opportunity for you to find information when you're doing your genealogical research.
When did he develop the News Navigator?
2020. So he went into work at the Library of Congress, and he did that last year. So it's pretty new. I mean, this is pretty new. So I think it will become more robust over time. And I think that's a really key thing, is that source code being available. And you can actually go out there right now, look it up and see the code if you want to, which that's great, because then you can get additional grad students, additional people doing other projects that want to fine tune that or add additional what we call it's a GUI, a graphical user interface. That makes it easier for the user like us to go in and do searches in a more effective way. So hopefully somebody will take that base source, build a better GUI on top of it, so that we can use it to do far more robust queries and searches. Okay, so that's Newspaper Navigator. Any other questions about that one? Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is probably the most exciting thing for me. When I saw this, and I know Kathy saw it too on I think it was 60 Minutes or something, I thought this was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen in technology, that just because it is something that has so many applications going forward. And this is the future. I mean, this is so cool. Anyway, so what I'm going to talk about next is the new dimensions for a technology project, which is basically testimonies of survivors of genocide in all different realm. So it's part of the Shoah Foundation at USC, which of course is founded by Steven Spielberg. And they have been doing recordings of Holocaust survivors for over 25 years now. And the latest technology that they brought into play here is this new project. And it basically consists of interviews with Holocaust survivors and survivors of other genocide that involves creating 3D holograms. And it is pretty amazing. So I guess the best way to visualize this is if you've ever been to Disneyland and you've gone on the Haunted Mansion ride and you're in your little cart and you go through a room that has like a crystal ball and there's a fortune teller's head in there kind of talking to you, and it looks like somebody's head's actually in there. And then you go through the ride and at the very end, there's a ghost in your car. You go by a mirror and there's a ghost in your car with you. That's a hologram. That's like a virtual human, so to speak. And the way this is working is individual Holocaust survivors or survivors of other genocide are coming into the studio at USC. It is basically a green screen tent. And the individual comes in and sits in a chair in the same position, wearing the same clothes for an entire week. They come in every day, and there is an interviewer, and they ask them questions about their experience during these events. And these questions and answers are all captured into a big database. And some of these survivors were asked 2,000 questions or more. Then what happens is there are cameras all around this particular green screen, and they take pictures of the individual, the interviewee, in all different angles. They then create a 3D image of that individual using a hologram, and they capture all of those answers to all of those questions into a massive database that uses voice recognition technology to have an interactive experience with this individual. So let's say, an individual Holocaust survivor has passed, they went through this process and then they passed away this year. Their information and their answers, responses are all kept so that students 10 years from now can ask them questions interactively and look like they're actually having a conversation with that individual seamlessly. So it's just incredible. So the student might ask, what was your child look like before the war? And the individual who was interviewed will talk about that directly back to that student. So it's just an amazing tool. It's an amazing technology, and it allows us to capture these stories and also these answers to questions, and then have them available for generations to come. Very, very cool. And I'd like to show you a little video about it, but like I'm new to this Zoom technology and sharing screens, but I can try to do that once I'm finished with the presentation. So it's very, very cool. I'm also going to give you some additional resources that you can use to access additional sites that you might want to find videos and other information about these particular products. The other thing I was going to mention to you too is this new product that's been developed using the same technology, the technology that was used for the Holocaust survivors. It's going to be available on your mobile phone, and this is called StoryFile app. And it's currently, like I said, in beta testing right now, which means that the application's been developed, it's been tested by the development team, and they're giving it to a bigger universe of users to try to break it. So people got this on their phone and they're trying to use it and figure out where the bugs are, and then they'll go back and fix that. But that's pretty far along. That is called StoryFile app, as I said, and it is not available yet on the App Store, but I did look it up and it looks like it's going to be free when it is available. StoryFile app will allow you to put an app on your phone basically you can have a discussion with a Holocaust survivor. You can have a discussion with an astronaut. You can have a discussion with a person who served in Vietnam. They're collecting all of these interviews, and you'll be able to, through voice recognition on your phone, ask the different folks questions and get a response from them from that database of answers. This can also be used to have a conversation with your ancestors, or you can have like I might do my mom, have my mom go through an interview process and record it all, and then my kids or my grandkids who aren't alive yet will be able to ask their great grandmother questions using this mobile app. It is pretty amazing. So that's the future. I think it's the near future. It's not way out there. It's pretty close. And it is just something that, you have to see to believe. It's amazing. And that's the most exciting thing I wanted to tell you about, was that particular application and this project, which is just so beyond anything I've seen before in terms of the ability to capture the image and also to capture all of the voice responses and have them available through a very seamless process for you to have a conversation with them that doesn't seem choppy. Everything's kind of flows really, really smoothly. Really amazing. There's some additional sites for you to use if you want to go further into any of these particular products that I've talked about today. Any other questions? So would you like me to try to pull up that site at the USC site so I can show you that a little video about that product?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to try to do that, but bear with me. I'm new to this. So let me see if I can get it up here.
Gloria, would you also, before we close, put up the slide right before this one so I can take a screenshot of it?
Oh, sure. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to try.
And Susan, can you put that on the chat link?
Yes, I will. And I also got, while Gloria was speaking, I went to all 3 of the websites that she described, not to Ancestry, because we all know that. And I will put that in the same email where the names that we shared earlier is in.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can come back here and just copy this. I think you guys could see that green screen there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so just so I'm going to show you, this is the sort of the tent I was mentioning with all the cameras around, and there's the person who's the survivor, the Holocaust survivor who's being interviewed, and that's sort of the environment that they're working in. If we go down here, I'm going to, let's see, this is a little short video about it.
The Holocaust is an undeniable and horrific chapter in human history in which 6 million Jews and countless millions perished in genocide and crimes against humanity during the Second World War. Dimensions in Testimony is a new format of interview by which you can ask your questions of a Holocaust survivor who has videotaped answers to many questions, so that the questions that you have will be answered directly, in person, live-size, and 3D.
What was life like before the war?
I had a very happy childhood. I loved to be together with my family.
We understand very well the power of conversation between Holocaust survivors and the younger generation. We've seen it in our schools, we've seen it in our universities. That conversation, that moment of dialogue where I ask my question and I get it answered is just it's magic in the room when that happens. And we wanted to try and find a way to preserve that as best possible. What's wonderful about conversing with these Holocaust survivors in this interactive form is that it's about you, about what you want to know. Conversation allows you to learn in a way that most suits your interests. And that's where the deepest learning takes place.
Do you feel hope for the future?
I always feel hopeful. If I wasn't hopeful, I wouldn't be talking to you or anybody else about my experience.
I'm very happy that I was able to survive.
And here I am. I was one of the lucky.
The questions that students have is what's driving the learning experience. And so we know that this is important because we're going to enable them to be able to learn through their own curiosity. We are almost out of time to have deep conversations with Holocaust survivors. If we don't have these conversations now, they will never take place.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
Wow, what a wealth of information.
Thank you.
So
I
much.
hope you learned something, and it was very interesting for me to do this research because I learned a lot.
I was thinking about, the presentation that I made that sort of prompted this, and I'm like talking about, yes, I have these people on cassette. And just going from that, like be sure to capture people, and I have them on cassette, and then to what you're talking about is just, I don't know, it just brought tears to my eyes, thinking of, like you say, the great grandkids or whatever, being able to meet in this odd way
And talk to them
and
actually
talk
have a
to
conversation.
them.
I mean, it blows my
Yeah.
mind. I think this is so amazing, like in terms of getting to know your ancestors, and you gotta make a concerted effort, obviously, to record it and to get it somehow saved. But it just changes everything.
Jeez, that's great.
When I watched this on 60 Minutes, it was, it's so amazing that they could take all the language in it and they could save it and it could come back as a conversation, not necessarily just them sitting there giving a report on, or, an interview that was, it's just like, it is so interactive. Like they ask a question and somehow the answer through technology comes out just like we're doing today. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
What a gift.
Cool stuff, right?
Very cool.
Very cool.
Well, thank you everybody for your attention. I hope I didn't get too technical, but I hope you did see some really cool stuff that's coming our way.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Susan, you're saving this, right? You're saving the chat?
Hopefully.
I just sent an email to you, Vicki, because we don't have an email list yet that I know about. So I just sent all of that.
Perfect.
to
Thank
Vicki,
you.
And she will disseminate it to the gang, I presume.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, I'm so glad you're recording this. This is amazing.
Yeah, I know. We were thinking this is something, because it's so unusual, I've gone, as all of us have heard many different presentations. It's like we could see this whole new career opening up for Gloria at all these genealogical societies and conferences. Never heard anything like this. This is great.
Yeah, so we do have a little extra time. If you want me to show you some of the other tools, I'm happy to log in. I mean, I have an account on Civil War Sleuth. I can log in there if you want to see.
It'd be fun to see that.
Won't do a full demo, but I'll just, kind of
Yeah.
show you. Okay, so let me see if I can, are you seeing this slide or not?
No, it's not shared. Your screen isn't shared.
Okay, I need to get back in here. Hold on a second. I need to whoops. As again, I'm like a little bit new to this whole thing, so I'm going to try to come back here. Okay, I'm going to share a screen. And let's see if I can.
Does Vicky have to allow you again since you went out?
I don't know.
It would be Mary.
Okay, let me see if I can pull this up again and have it pop in.
Yeah, she still co-hosted, so you should be able to do it, but I have it on my screen if you want. What?
Oh, okay.
You want me to do it?
Let me see if I can get it. Oh, hold on. Let me see a new share. Let's see. Oh, here it is. I think I got it.
There.
Yep.
There we go.
Okay, so the person that I've been looking for is a guy named Joshua Wade. He is one of my ancestors that I've been trying to find. I know he was a soldier in a Vermont regiment that went to New Orleans area. He ended up dying in 1862 in New Orleans. And I was hoping to get a picture of him, but I didn't find any. But when I put in the last name Wade, so I'll look Joshua, it'll come up with the no names. But if I take out the Joshua and just do Wade, it comes up with these other photographs. It's taking a while here, sorry. But these might be relatives because they're in Massachusetts, and so, you know, they're not far from Vermont. So, you know, I can take a look at these people, do a little bit more research about them. Maybe they're related. But that's one thing you can do. And then also, like, one of the people that I did load was the photo, the only one I had a name on. I did load it in here, and I can show you which one I loaded in. Was all it just said was Grandma Noyes. So she's in here. There she is. And I realized who she was because I put the Grandma Noyes, and I put the dates back together with, you know, when the picture was taken, because it was taken in 1869. And so I got her information kind of put in there, and her name is Hannah Hadley Noyes. But there are other, that's her daughter. So there's other people in the family I can take a look at and see, oh, they were Massachusetts too. Here's another one from Massachusetts, from New Hampshire. So they're probably Maine, all these New Englanders, they probably are all related somehow. There's Vermont. William, I believe, was Hannah Hadley Noyes' husband. So, you know, it's a pretty powerful tool. And you can see over here, you can pick out the branch, if you have the regiment number, if you have the officer rank. You know, I'm just looking for everything right now, but you can specify if they were medical staff or whatever it might be. But it's a great way to find a lot of information about your ancestors that might have been alive during the Civil War.
I can't wait to try this.
Yeah, give it a go. Yeah, give it a try. So if anyone has a last name they want me to put in, I'll just put it in right now. You can see what, anybody have an ancestor last name they want me to try?
Yeah, this is Julia, and no one else has one. I'd like to try Morse, M-O-R-S-E.
And do you have a first name or just try the Morse?
James.
James.
There he is.
Oh, wow.
There he is.
Yeah, it's super simple. I mean, this one has.
Yeah, he may be in there because he had he'd been a pallbearer for Lincoln when Lincoln's body was brought to Springfield, Illinois.
Wow, that's cool.
He's a handsome guy.
Yeah, this will tell you. This will tell you. You know, this person helped find a home for these photo albums found in Oregon.
Wow.
This person, Cappy Lynn, put this in here, and you know, there's some information there. You might be able to talk.
Rick Leonard is one of my kind of distant cousins.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I think this has a great user interface. You know, the newspaper Navigator is not this intuitive and not this robust, but this one's really good. So anyway, I would recommend if you have photos you want to load in, and especially if you have the identification, load them in there, because that will help other people too. And also, like I said before, if it's tintype, it'll preserve the image, you know, and then it's in the National Archives and it won't get more deteriorated or anything like that.
Is this man related to Cecil Morris on Lummi? I mean, at Olga, an early pioneer?
I have no idea. I've never heard of a Morse relation that came to this area, but it's possible.
Oh, there's the big hardware store in Bellingham.
Oh,
that was Morse.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much.
Sure. Anybody else have anybody they want me to look up? I'm happy to do it.
Yes, Lewis Hyatt. I think
L-E-W?
I think so. And
Hyatt.
then H-I-A-T-T.
H-I-A-T-T.
Gloria, do you know anything about the Black Hawk War?
No.
I know a little bit.
Sorry, no Lewis Hyatt. Is it Lewis with L-E-W or L-O-U?
Yeah, I think you have it spelled right. I've got his discharge papers and stuff from the war, but he built my house in Olga. He came out after the war.
Wow. Okay.
Try
cool.
just the last name.
I'm going to do that and try the last name only. See, because sometimes it might be L or see, that's Peter Shine. That's
it could be with a Y on there. H-Y.
Okay, let me try it. So that's good too. Like that person's name was Shyat. So it just looked that string, which makes it good, because sometimes you might not have an exact spelling and it does look like it. So here's James, Edward, John, Thomas, Amos, Charles. New York, Minnesota, PA, New York, New York. I guess they're not in there yet. Like my one ancestor, Joshua Wade's not in there either yet, but keep checking because it's getting bigger and bigger all the time, and it might be, you know.
So who wanted to know about the Black Hawk War?
Leith Templin.
Oh,
I have some of my Templin relatives were in the Black Hawk War. My great grandfather.
Yeah, my Wilborns were too. I'll have to catch up with you.
Okay, great.
Oh, would you look at mine? It's Eliezer Stokes.
Okay. Should I just look up Stokes?
Right out of Dickens, right?
Yeah. I'll look up Stokes first. That's correct spelling there?
S-T-O-A-K-E-S.
O-A-K-E-S. Okay. Let's see. Nope.
So I should upload one picture.
Yeah, definitely. And if you have the information about, you know, any of the other information, definitely put it in there.
How about Robert Mutton? M-U-T-T-O-N.
Nope.
Because I have a tintype of him. Good.
Oh, okay. Put it in there, because then that would be great for recognition.
Yeah.
Because then they might be able to identify another photo. See, if you put the tintype in and they can use a facial recognition, there might be a printed photo somewhere in, you know, like a military photo that somebody else put in there, but it's not identified, and they might be able to match them up.
Neat.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
I have one, Mordecai Starkey.
Let's choose C-A-R-K-E-Y.
Yeah.
Lemuel. See.
Now that's possible. Okay. There's a whole bunch of young Starkey people. Huh, 11, there were 11 sons.
Wow.
So he may be one of them. Starkey John.
This guy was
Wow.
born in 1816. He was in the Massachusetts Infantry 47th.
I think these were New Jersey people.
Okay.
Anyway.
But
All
it might
right.
be a connection somewhere.
Yeah, no, I'll keep going with this. It's very intriguing.
Yeah. Cool.
Gosh.
Oh, can you put in one for me?
Sure.
Andrew Jackson Newell, Newell.
Newell.
Uh-huh.
Nope. Let's try this Newell.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, this database started mid 2018, so it's relatively new. So it's building and building. So here's a bunch of Newells. Let's see.
Yeah.
Where was he from? Which state?
Oh, I'm gonna say it was down in the South.
Okay, so he'd be Confederate then, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Kansas.
Yeah, Kansas. Yep.
I'll have to do some digging.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks to me like the New England states have a lot more records than a lot of, I mean, I don't see a lot from the South. So
yeah,
I do see a lot more from Union Army. But anyway, that's Civil War Sleuth. So hopefully it'll you'll be able to find something.
I'm sure I will.
Oh,
Just cool.
That is cool.
Wow.
Yeah, so everyone's got some time on their hands, I guess, with the being home. You can start looking at all these different tools and see what kind of gems or little gold nuggets you find, right?
Yeah.
Oh God.
All right. Any other questions for me?
I don't think so.
Just a big thank you, Gloria. This
Oh,
is-
you're very welcome.
Yeah,
Gloria,
it's
was
really
for
fun.
me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, does anybody else have anything they want to, yeah. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about or bring up? Yeah, okay. Well, hopefully next week or next month I'll talk to Sandy and we'll see what might be the topic. And then after that, we're going to have a presentation. I mean, this is, all tentatively planned with Boyd Pratt. And he's working, he writes different books about the small aspects or big aspects of history in the San Juan Islands, but condenses them into different books. And he's from San Juan Island. So he's got a new project he's working on that he'll share with us. I'm trying to get a woman from Whatcom County. Her name's Colby Labrie, and she, I think at the moment, is the president of their historical society, but she's a really interesting person. She gives lots of presentations, and she is the owner of something called the Good Time Girls in Bellingham, and they do tours. So for Christmas, I bought our family, although I was told by my son I probably really bought it for myself, a gift certificate of one of her walking tours. So they take you through Fairhaven, or I'm interested in Bellingham and Holly Street and the downtown Bellingham area. So anyway, if other people have ideas, that's about, we've done amazingly well coming up with fun topics with fun people. But you know, this was great that Gloria, you were willing to share with us. So if anybody's working on other things they want to share or knows of a resource that may be happy to present just for the pure joy of presenting.
I was thinking if we could get Benjamin Lee to present about Newspaper
Yeah.
Navigator. I mean, he's a PhD student, so he's pretty excited about the topic. I've seen,
Yeah.
him. He will do like a demo on. There's one of those links I gave you was his demo of his product. But since he's in at UW, maybe he'd be willing to do it for us.
Yeah. Well, I keep trying to get Vicky going on this one, and it also attracted me to Sandy, which maybe we'll talk about. But there's a few people that have experience with how to find the history of houses. You know, there's a whole genealogy in a certain way, a whole track of doing that. There's a woman in Seattle who's involved with the Seattle Genealogical Society. You might see her name if you're looking at conferences or lectures. Her name's Jill Morelli, and that's one of her specialties. So I thought that would be, kind of interesting as well to start to learn how you could, if you are in an older house or whatever, how you could find the history of that house. So there's all kinds of directions we can go. It's just honing in on them. So I've kind of noticed too a little bit, we've sort of become I like being this combination of history and genealogy, these two things go together. So anyway, so I guess if anybody has anything else, we'll just say goodbye.
Are we out of time, or are we?
No, we still have a little time, but.
Well, I just wanted to know if you wanted to talk a little bit more about what you brought up about that, the historical site of the building being sold in Seattle.
Well, I can tell you, I've been following this for a long time. It was one of those things that appeared to be a done deal. Like by the time anybody heard about it, it had already been put on the chopping block. And the government had decided they're selling resources or buildings that they don't deem useful anymore. So this was one of them. It's been there for years and years. It was part of, the Sandpoint area, I think had a Navy base.
Yeah, airport, the Naval Air Station.
Yeah, the Naval Air Station. So it's out right there, and huge building. Anyway, so it was just told to people that this was going to be sold. And so people wrote letters, but felt like it was just after the fact, like, dang it. Well, this, we have a very proactive attorney general in Washington, and he either received enough letters or thought it was important himself. And he is bringing this up now. And I don't know if he's done a lawsuit. I'm not sure exactly. I was surprised when I read this article because I thought it had just been done. They're going to take all these, I can't remember where they want to send them, Kansas or something. It's not like they're trying to destroy all the records, but it's really.
Have they digitized any of these records or made them available online?
I'm not sure how. I'm sure they have done some, but like everything, so much of that is done by volunteers. So I'm not sure exactly. I think I sent a link to that article again back. Did I put it in the chat?
I'm looking for it. Can't find it.
I might have done it sort of way at the beginning. Oh, this is the article that goes with the Zoom link above. And they mentioned, let's see, I did it at 10:49. So anyway, what I read about this happening today, again, just felt like it came out the other day. I almost forgot about it. But I think it's an important thing. So they're both looking for comments and explanations of what this all means. And that it's a huge loss to the Northwest, especially, you know, because it does really hold a lot of information about Native American records. So
Would there be a possibility, I don't know, this might be a question for the Attorney General, but could they transfer those records to University of Washington or something that has an archive or some sort of ability to store?
there's a lot. I mean, I think, yes, I'm sure he's going to go through all that today. And honestly, you know, I didn't sit down and read that article piece by piece. I mostly just thought, okay, I'm going to show up, have it explained where it is at the moment. And so I know I was committed to the idea of it being left in Seattle, but I'm also really interested. You know, again, sometimes it's really fun to see how, well, this is really geeky fun, I guess, how some of these people work, you know, like this Attorney General. We've been hearing about him for years and a lot of stuff he does, but I don't know as I've really seen him talk or speak or stand up. I know he does. So I'm kind of just interested in how he's approaching this topic and why it means so much to him.
Kathy, I've heard parts of the story. And
oh, good.
One part of it, it was just a big flim flam that this real estate developers want that beautiful property on Lake Washington.
Yes, yes.
That really kicked off a lot of it. And the second part, how important it is to the Lummies, and they're so powerful now as a native community, you know. So that's got the native community involved too. But so those
yeah, good.
So that's further behind what you see.
Yeah.
So, but McKenna's taken on Trump for, I don't know how many cases, and he hasn't lost any in all this time.
Yeah, well, I think this is Ferguson at this point. Ferguson, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I know. So he's an interesting guy, and he doesn't just, you know, take things sitting down that he's not behind, I guess. So I'm just curious in this again to see who the players are. Like you said, there's real estate, there's the Lummies. Who is involved here? Who's going to show up at this meeting and say what they have to say? I think there's just people like us, you know, genealogists who like, wow, this is a travesty to do that.
Because I think this is one of the 10 national archives.
Yeah, there's not many.
And my understanding is they're moving it to California.
Is that where it is? Okay.
But I don't know. I mean, that's when it first came out when I heard it.
Yeah. So I'm curious because I kind of just thought it was a done deal and they were on their way, but it'll be, yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing, well, again, hearing somebody stand up for these staying where they belong.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it starts at what time?
3:30 to 5:30.
Okay. So I actually have another meeting at 4, so that's why I'm so anxious about trying to figure out how to send something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And again, if you get a chance to read the article, it might be clearer on that.
Okay.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I'm just glad that you've got such a nice group of people that are so interested in so many things. I really look forward to this. It's fun.
No, it's been fun. We've gotten to enter a lot of different worlds through our group and our interests and things like that. You know, I do have to say, I think during this pandemic, I was like Gloria, you know, I think did a couple presentations, you know, not confident at all. I hadn't done a PowerPoint thing or anything. And so part of me, you know, it's really a lot, it's a lot of work, right? You get your information, but then, you know, you also learn new technologies as you're doing it. So that's kind of this mixed blessing, you know, so you make a decision that you're going to do it, and then you find yourself having to do things you had never done before. So now that I'm all done, I'm like really grateful that I had the chance to learn it, but it's very, you know, it has to be a labor of love because it's got a lot of levels. So when somebody does something, I guess. Not that it's not like that when you do it in person either, but
So Kathy,
yeah.
I just barely got tuned into you because I was tied up for the rest of this. Do I see that you recorded the whole thing?
Well, the library records these, and
Good.
they've recorded a lot of them.
Are we going to get a copy of that sent to us?
Then we still have a library person here, right?
Yeah, no,
there you
we're
are.
not. Hi. We're not sending it out. When we finish doing the edits and cropping everything, it is sent so that the club can post it on their Facebook page.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you would access it through their Facebook page.
And how long does that process take to get it there?
At least a week.
Okay. I was so interested in hearing what you had to say. What is it?
Gloria.
I have my presentation and my speaker notes. I can send those to you after the meeting and you can just read through them if you want to.
Wow.
Not today, tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, okay, we have 12 minutes. Does anybody have a project that we haven't heard about that they're working on intensely? I know a lot of us have expressed sort of being slackers during all this, but okay, that's good.
I've got a question. Does anybody know why Lummi Island is not a San Juan Island? And does anybody know when Whatcom County released, I guess, property to San Juan County when those counties were divided? Was it at statehood?
I feel it was 1869, but I'm really bad with dates. So why that popped in, I have just looked that up recently.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it was a statehood thing. But you can find the history of it. Yeah, those are really good questions.
Because like so many of the old records are at that big museum that was the county courthouse there in Bellingham.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, a lot of that's online. I've been doing this project really intensely. Like it's really kind of stupid, but I got caught up in it, and I've mentioned it. You know, I've probably been doing it a year, but I just stumbled on this story about all these children in the summer of 1913. Maybe 13, 14 children all died within a period of a month in Bellingham. And the story made newspapers all over the United States. And, you know, there's stories about it from Arkansas and Oregon, all over. And every story had a different diagnosis of why these children died. And I don't know, it captured my interest.
Was it pneumonia, one of them?
No, it was an intestinal, you know, when I finally got all the death certificates, they all say colitis. So it's an intestinal gut thing. But, you know, the diagnoses at first were bubonic plague, eating unripe fruit, fruit with germs, fruit spray, lead arsenate poisoning. So I just got intrigued, and my question was, well, I wonder later, you know, I'll look it up and see what the final diagnosis was. And I haven't been able to find it. So that has led me all over the state. I've probably corresponded with 30 different people, historians, childhood illness specialists, counties. So it's been really fun to take on a project like this just for the nature of how do you research something like this and what were the records and all that.
Do you have the names of the kids?
I've gotten the names of the kids. I've gotten where they live. They were all in the same area. I've learned that there were giant sawmills in the area, that they were probably all immigrant kids. So I'm kind of, after a year, I'm sort of stuck on this idea that it had something to do with the water, either toxins from the mill or, you know, say upstream there was a dead animal or something in Whatcom Creek. So it's been, you know, I feel like part of me feels like, wow, this is a really dumb project. If I put this much effort into cleaning my house, man, I would have a really clean house. But on the other hand, you know, it's sort of skill building for one thing, as well as just solving a mystery. You know, we all read mysteries. So I'm like, well, I guess here's my mystery. What killed all those children in 1913?
You've got all that information to write a great local novel.
Yeah, no, I do. And I've actually contacted Fairhaven Environmental College, and they thought that they might be able to, this might be a fun project for a student as well, you know.
Maybe even a film student who can do a little documentary.
It would be great. So I've been, the major problem I've had in this is that I can't go to any archives. Because since Corona started, COVID, they won't let people come. So, or libraries or any of these things. So I've had a problem, you know, getting some of the information, but it has been really interesting. And I do feel like once I get all what I have now compiled, it is possible that I can pass it on to a student to make more out of it.
Cool.
So I don't know where it'll turn out. We all have those things, you know, you have no idea how it's going to turn out, but you're off on this wild goose chase. So that's my project. Okay. Okay. Well, it was nice seeing everybody. Thank you so much, Gloria. And good to see you all. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Yeah, it was really fun.
Wow.
Thank you. Okay, so off we go.